got Texas and Tennessee on deck today. But Texas is really going for it. And we have this case coming out of there where Mr. Silva has decided that, I'm going to take advantage of this law. And I'm not even going to go for the $10,000 bounty fee. I'm going to go for $1 million a head for each of the folks who I am accusing, that he is accusing of helping his ex-wife secure an abortion. What say you about this, particularly because I'm sure that you heard people telling you were all types of crazy, Imani, all types of blowing things, out of proportion, being hyperbolic. I know it gives you no real pleasure to say I told you so, but yeah, you told us so.
Yeah, it doesn't give me any pleasure, but it's also because I've been doing this for 10 years and I've been studying this movement, and I know not to believe what they say. Well, not to always believe what they say, but to look at what they do. But when they're saying stuff that sounds completely bonkers, you should definitely listen to what they say, right? So when they say stuff like, yeah, I think that we should ban interracial marriage, if you think that sounds bonkers, you should listen to them because they're telling you what they want to do. But when it comes to prosecuting pregnant people, there's no way to ban abortion the way conservatives want to ban abortion without prosecuting A, pregnant people, and B, other people in the access pipeline who help pregnant people when they can't get to the pregnant person. And that's sort of what we have with this case in Texas, right? The Texas law, Texas has criminalized abortion. It's felony, it's murder. That's just the way it is. So this person, Marcus Silva, has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against his ex-wife's 3 best friends who, according to text messages, were at least quote unquote conspiring to obtain quote unquote illegally obtain abortion pills for, I think her name is Brittany Silva. And if you read the complaint and you read the text messages that are attached to the complaint, it just sounds like what probably you or I would sound like if we were trying to counsel someone who was in a bad marriage and who was potentially in an abusive marriage, and we were trying to help them get out. I mean, that's what it reads like to me. I think it's going to come out eventually. We're going to get more specifics about how abusive the marriage was, but I have no doubt that this marriage was abusive based on the tenor of the text messages and based on the simple fact that who sues a person's best friends for getting an abortion after the marriage was probably already over? They got divorced in February. The abortion took place allegedly in June. And what kind of person does it take to actually sue your friends, your ex-wives, or your wife, your estranged wives, best friends, for helping her do something with her own body? Right? Like, it shows a lack of respect for the other person's body. And I think in a marriage that is really alarming. But setting all of that aside, I think what's really sort of critical here is that this lawsuit has been filed was filed by a man named Jonathan Mitchell. And Jonathan Mitchell is the conservative attorney who was behind SB 8, like this new crop of bounty hunter bills where states are giving their essentially enforcement power over to the public and saying, we're not going to enforce these laws because if we enforce these laws, that gives someone to sue, right? So with the abortion ban, they said, we're banning abortion, but no one in the state at the state level is going to enforce it. Giving over enforcement to the public. So when lawyers were trying to figure out how to sue to block this law, they couldn't find anyone to sue, right? They couldn't sue the attorney general because the attorney general has no enforcement power. They couldn't sue the Department of Health because the Department of Health has no enforcement power. So what they did is they sued every judge and every clerk in the state of Texas because those were the people who would be enforcing this law. But then the Fifth Circuit and the Supreme Court said, wait, you can't do that. And the Supreme Court also at the same time said, but we don't know what you can do, even though we're the highest court of the land and we're the ones who should probably look at this type of law and say, this law makes no sense. You can't confer standing, the ability to sue on people who haven't been injured. And then the injury was called, it's just mental distress from the fact that other people are getting abortion. That's the injury that they were talking about here. And the Supreme Court just threw up its hands and said, we don't know what we can do. And that's why when you hear abortion rights enthusiasts, activists, advocates talk about the Supreme Court gutting or basically banning abortion a year before it did, it's because it didn't intervene in this bonkers law that allowed anyone in the country to sue someone in Texas for having an abortion, right? And so that's what that's the sort of level of lawyering that Jonathan Mitchell brings to these lawsuits. So you can't just look at this lawsuit and say, this is just a simple wrongful death lawsuit by a man who's aggrieved by some reason by his wife and his wife's friends who helped her get an abortion. No, this is an attack on medication abortion specifically, because medication abortion is the wave of the future, right? In 2020, Rewire News Group did and a special edition that said, essentially, medication abortion is the wave. It's the wave of the future. It's the future of abortion access. The anti-choicers know that too. They know that they can't ban abortion without banning medication abortion. So they're attacking it from all sides, right? They're making it criminal to buy the pills. Right now, there's a hearing going on in Texas about whether or not this rogue Trump judge is going to ban medication abortion via injunction nationwide, right? There's a hearing going on right now. Everything that's going on with anti-choice activism right now is targeting medication abortion. It's targeting those first 10 weeks where people can just go and take a pill, go home, have an abortion at home or with their loved ones, and then move on with their lives. That's what most people do after taking a medication abortion. They just move on with their lives. But no, Marcus Silva and Jonathan Mitchell, his attorney, is arguing that his ex-wife and these three people conspired to murder his baby. I mean, the way that the lawsuit is phrased, it talks about how these abortion pills were illegally obtained and these people were conspiring to murder his baby. And even his wife concealed the pregnancy because she wanted to murder the baby. But we're not suing the wife because Texas law doesn't allow us to sue the wife. We can't sue the pregnant person. The pregnant person is quote unquote held harmless, at least for now. So we're going to go and we're going to attack the people around the pregnant person. We're going to attack the abortion funds, and we're going to attack the mutual aid, systems. And we're going to go through the person's text messages and find all their iMessages and their Facebook messages and their Instagram messages and their Snapchat messages. And we're going to use them against the pregnant person and against the pregnant person's friends. And so, I'm currently doing a podcast script about this case, which is why I'm so rambly and animated about it, because I've been studying it pretty closely over the past couple of days, trying to figure out a way to tell people it's going to be okay. But I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't tell you that if you live in an abortion hostile state, if you live in a state that is attacking abortion at all levels, I can't tell you that you're going to be okay if you help someone get an abortion, because the likelihood is that legally you're not. Legally, Texas has said that you're a criminal. Legally, however many other states, 14, 15 other states have said that you are a criminal if you get an abortion or you try to help someone get an abortion. You're a criminal if you get one, but we're going to leave you alone because we're still not ready to start whole hog attacking pregnant people. But certainly if your best friend helps you, we're going to go after them. Jonathan Mitchell and Marcus Silva are suing each of her three friends for $1 million each. Right. That tells you this isn't a serious lawsuit. These people don't have $1 million to give off in damages. What they're trying to do is they're trying to raise the level of medication abortion to such an extreme to make it seem like it's this horrible chemically induced, lethal, fatal thing that people are doing, right? It's murder. And the way that they can do that is they have to make it seem as if mifepristone, which is the first pill in the medication abortion regimen, they have to make it seem like mifepristone is this horrible, scary drug, right? And that's why I've come on here and talked to you before about laws that are attempting essentially to liken medication abortion pills to crystal meth labs, right? Likening people's wombs to a crystal meth lab. They're trying to make crystal meth make medication abortion seem as bad as crystal meth. Because the fact of the matter is, since medication abortion was approved, since mifepristone was approved in 2000, there have been 28 deaths associated with people who have taken medication abortion. 28 deaths out of 5.6 million abortions that have taken place via medication abortion. That's a very safe drug. That's safer than Tylenol, right? Wow. But what they're trying to do when they talk about how lethal and deadly and horrible these drugs are and that they are taking lives, they're including the 3 to 10 week old embryo as a life. So when they're in the court documents,
mifepristone, because it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is preventing the continuing development of the fetus, they're counting that fetus's ending as one of the murders that Wow.
And that's the
We are
harm.
in
That's
the
the harm that
upside down.
mifepristone does, is that it, quote unquote,
It
kills
works.
babies. It does what it's supposed to do, right?
It does what it's supposed to do.
But we are in a society now where, you know, life is precious and every egg is a person, and people have 14th Amendment rights and Fifth Amendment rights at the moment of conception. And so if medication abortion is taking a human life, right, it is doing what it's supposed to do, then you just mark that terminated pregnancy as part of the harms, the deaths that were, you know, occurred because of medication abortion. That's where we are.
Mifepristone is not
we are
safe.
in the upside down. Because it does what it's supposed to do.
Because it works at ending a pregnancy. So
Yeah.
Imani, I think another reason behind this $1 million per person against people who we know do not have access to the money is that, let's say he's successful, right? Now we have a new precedent for damages for what can be basically it can be a fee that you are now forced to pay, even if it sends you into bankruptcy, even if it just completely disrupts your own financial sustainability. That is going to have an impact on those mutual aid groups and their willingness to take the risk. That's going to have an impact on the other friends who are thinking about helping their pregnant friend get out of this bad relationship or end this pregnancy. Because, did you hear about those 3 sisters who basically got sued for $1 million apiece? They can't find a job. Now their names are going to be plastered all over the news. It is designed to send fear throughout the entire community so that there's going to be a quelling effect on people who are willing to do this type of work. Although I will say, we have had to help each other secure abortions before we had cell phones and Snapchat and all the other things. We will continue to do it. However, this adds an extra layer and an extra burden that I think by design, particularly because we know his lawyer is one of the originators or the designers of this particular law, we know that there is a real agenda here. And this is not some brokenhearted, spurned lover who's trying to reclaim his family. This is a jackass who's trying to take advantage of this law and maybe come out financially on top. And I'd be willing to bet none of that money that he would get in this case would be forced to go into child support payments for the children he actually has. But that's a whole other story for an entirely different day.
And I do want to just, while I have the ears of your listeners, I do want to say, if you are one of those people that is willing to break the law, you please do it smartly. You have to be smart about it.
Yes.
You have to.
Yes.
Don't do any of these. Have these conversations on your regular phone. Get a burner phone. Research sort of information security. Someone was telling me that you should get a burner phone and then not use it for 6 months because of the way that records are kept. You have to think like a criminal, and that means not using all of the technology that we have gotten used to using as we navigate relationships and friendships and helping our friends get out of bad relationships and helping our friends get abortions. You got to be on the DL. You got to go underground. If these 3 women got busted through their text messages,
insane,
right? And
it's insane.
Just, you got to use Signal, go to a library and use a public computer if you're trying to do research. I use a VPN, a virtual private network. And I would honestly suggest that you research information security on the internet. Don't even just take what I'm saying, because I'm not an expert in it. I just know that you can't go about doing this stuff on Facebook and on Instagram and on, using your regular phone. It's just wear masks. If you're going places, right? We're still in a pandemic. You can wear a mask. That's one way to shield your face from facial recognition software. Like, you got to think, if you've ever seen the movie Enemy of the State, remember that old Will Smith joint from 2000 or 1999?
Yes.
Like, that stuff is happening, right? That movie was prescient. So you got to act as if people are watching you at all times, because they are. And this guy, Jonathan Mitchell, he's not going to rest until he scares everyone in the country out of wanting to do anything to help somebody.
Like, the most complicated question my sister circles tend to have is who's bringing the snacks and who's bringing the wine? And are we talking about books? Are we talking about relationships? We can't talk about kids. We have a rule. When we get together, we're not talking about our kids. We're going to talk about something else. But those are the more complicated questions that we have to resolve as a sister circle. I have never had a sister circle conversation. Well, sis, we're going to have to get the burner phones updated. Who's got the latest edition of the burner phone stored at their home? We've never had to even think about that. But literally, if we want access to reproductive justice, we have to think like criminals. So y'all heard what she said, using Signal, thinking about researching VPNs, going to public libraries to do your research. And I literally wrote it down because I feel like I need to put this in a post and let people know. Do you know how to get a burner phone? Do you know how to make sure that you have like enough security baked into your Wi-Fi? I mean, these are not things that people who are going through the very difficult decision about terminating a pregnancy are typically aware of. So I'm just glad for you saying it, because just like I used to make fun of, the NFL when Colin Kaepernick was suing, I was like, they gonna settle because he gonna get discovery. He gonna file interrogatories. Right. He's gonna get discovery. He's gonna get access to all their emails, all the text messages. And so it was not a surprise when they settled. I thought they'd settle for hire, but that's not the point. But right now, when I would say those things, I would say, if you're going to crime in private. Don't be criming on a cell phone. Don't be criming on Wi-Fi. Don't crime in public. So y'all, if you're trying to have access to justice reproductively, don't crime in public. My gosh.
And another thing also, keep your mouth shut, right? Like if you are a pregnant person who's had a complication from taking abortion pills, don't go into a hospital and when they say, well, what did you take? Don't tell them what you took. Just say, I had a miscarriage, or I think I'm having a miscarriage. And that's it. Because healthcare workers are snitches, right? There's this woman, Purvi Patel, in Indiana several years ago who, she went into the hospital. They took her phone, looked at her text messages, and they basically had their case locked against her before she was even out of the hospital. She got sentenced to 41 years in prison. I mean, she settled and she's out of prison. I mean, she didn't settle, but they entered a plea agreement because you don't settle in criminal court. Wouldn't it be fun if you could? But she entered a plea agreement and got out, and that's fine. But don't talk to healthcare workers. A lot of people are kind of taught, well, not so many Black people, because Black people already have a fraught relationship with the healthcare system. But to the extent that you are a Black person that trusts in the healthcare system and trusts in healthcare workers, stop doing that. You've got to be more careful about what you say to people and who you say it to, because it will come back and bite you in the butt. And the one thing I've been really harping on Twitter and just interpersonally is like, don't crime in public. And don't say more than you need to say, because the ER, they're going to have to treat you anyway. Just say, I think I had a miscarriage, and they'll know what to do. And this is absolute insanity. Stay out of jail. Yeah.
This is absolute insanity. And that's before we cross the couple of borders and get to Tennessee, Imani, where they have decided, you remember that thing that Clarence Thomas said, where he was questioning the right to privacy to protect same-sex relationships and abortion? He didn't say interracial marriage, but we think he meant it too. And so Tennessee, Imani, is looking at Texas and doing the classic hold my beer, and they are passing laws that are basically saying they're going to gut your right to get access to a marriage certificate based on the preferences and the beliefs of the civil servants who are supposed to issue the marriage license. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah. Do you remember Kim Davis, that woman from years ago who was refusing to issue marriage licenses? I mean, that's what this is. This is empowering the Kim Davises of the world who are, elected or appointed to do a public service job. And they are going to bring their own personal religious feelings into it and say, no, I don't want to give you a marriage certificate. I, on behalf of the state, am not going to issue you a marriage certificate because you're in a same-sex marriage, because you're in an interracial marriage, or because I don't believe in whatever faith that you are. Like if you're in an interfaith marriage, or if you're not the quote unquote right faith, this clerk, the next Kim Davis in Tennessee, they can just deny you a marriage certificate. I mean, it's just, and I mean, like I said, I've been doing this show with you for a few years now, right? And I've been talking about this for so long. Like, this is what is going to happen. Obergefell is going to go. My colleague and, my work spouse,
can you explain what Obergefell is?
Right. Obergefell v. Hodges is the case that decriminalized same-sex marriage, right? That said, everyone can get married, everyone can get divorced and married, right? It decriminalized same-sex marriage. But what it didn't do, I'm still very upset with Anthony Kennedy for retiring when he did and for not solidifying his LGBTQ legacy, right? Because this is the man who wrote the opinion in Lawrence v. Texas, which decriminalized sodomy, right? He is sort of known, or was known, for being a ally of LGBTQ people, but not so much that he was willing to designate LGBTQ people as a suspect class, as a class of people that are being harassed and harangued, that don't have the political power to basically speak for themselves or elect people who will represent them. Essentially, he didn't say, you know what, we're gonna add a heightened scrutiny analysis. We're gonna do some real 14th Amendment equal protection work here. We're gonna give an equal protection analysis and tell LGBTQ people, you are a suspect class, and any laws that discriminate against you are subject to a heightened level of scrutiny. Anthony Kennedy could have done that. He didn't do that. Instead, he spent pages talking about dignity and how gay people should be dignified, and it's not dignified to say that they can't get married. But here we are, and there's no constitutional principle that will say, as a matter of constitutional law, same-sex people or same-sex marriages are constitutional. They're just going to overturn it. They don't believe in precedent. We know they don't believe in precedent. So.
But, I think had Tennessee decided to only stay in the realm of LGBTQ marriages or same-sex marriages, they might have slid under the radar as just, oh, that's Tennessee being Tennessee. But Imani, they went further. They said interfaith and they said interracial. So if I don't like this Asian black situation standing in front of me at the clerk of the court's desk where they're trying to apply for a marital license, if I don't like this white black situation over here, if I am not in favor of miscegenation of the races, then I, the Kim Davis of this era, for those of you who don't remember Kim Davis, she basically was like, I don't believe in same-sex marriages, so I'm not going to issue a license. But the Kim Davis of this era can say like, yeah, no, sorry, y'all don't have the genetic makeup that I'm in agreement with. So, and I mean, this is, to me, it's crazy, but I was just harping on Walgreens last week because Walgreens pharmacists don't have to give you medication if the medication violates their religious beliefs. So Imani, we have devolved from a society that says there are basic sets of rules and you can have your personal beliefs in your personal space. But when you are employed in a position at a corporation that gets tax benefits, when you are employed as an agent of the state, your personal beliefs got to stay in the car. Pick them back up when you clock out and drive home. But in this place, your personal beliefs do not matter because you have rules that you have to uphold. And we are completely blowing that principle and that understanding out of the water. And I hate to ask this question, but Imani, how bad can this get?
I mean, part of the thing that when people were attacking same-sex marriage, they said, well, people warned against the fact that they were going to start attacking interracial marriage. People said stuff like, well, Clarence Thomas is in an interracial marriage. He's not going to invalidate his own marriage. If you think Clarence Thomas won't invalidate his own marriage out of fealty to the Federalist Society, you got another thing coming, right?
Ooh.
Like, people need to be, if you need to think about the worst possible thing that these people could do, that's what they're trying to do. I mean, I think people need to remember women and pregnant people in this country are second-class citizens. We don't have the rights that we had less than a year ago, right? We don't have those rights anymore. And I feel like people keep forgetting that. People keep forgetting that we don't have human rights for women and pregnant people in this country.
And we only had them briefly. It was in the 70s when women got the right to open bank accounts and credit cards in their own name without their husband's permission. Did John agree for you, Karen, to get access to this credit card? Because if not, honey, you can't have a credit card with your little feminine self. You don't know how to spend money. You don't know how to save and bank and do numbers. That's figuring for the men folk. Literally, and what really I think people need to remember is Black people at a certain time, we were not allowed to be married. But when we weren't people, we only became people and citizens with the 14th Amendment, an amendment that can be amended. And we already, I haven't even started talking about the Constitutional Convention efforts, the Article 5 efforts that are happening in the farther reaches of Republican land. One day don't worry, it's coming, folks. And I know scaring is scary, but I can only scare you so much. But Imani, it's not far off that somebody who is in one of these positions, a Kim Davis, could say, yeah, I don't believe Black people should get married at all. Forget the interracial component. I'm not in agreement with this. You're not getting a marital license. Sue me.
Absolutely. And in fact, religion has been used to prop up that sort of thing, right? Religion has been used to prop up slavery. Religion has been used to say, Black women can't use the same toilet as white women. I mean, people will use religion to explain anything or to justify anything. And so whatever you think the worst thing is that these people could do, they're probably going to do something even worse than that.
Well, that's where we'll leave it. That's the mic drop of the moment.